All right, guys, what's going on? This is uh, this is something I was able to do using Screencastify. So I'm going to post this video once we're done to the assignments. You guys will be able to check it, and through something called Edpuzzle, I'll be able to monitor it and see if you guys watched it, if you watched it in its entirety, how long you watched the video for. So what I just wanted to make sure we accomplished today was us going over the two things that are going to be expected of you on our quiz. All right. The first, as you'll see over here on the right side of your screen, is the open-ended question. Okay. How to construct a confidence interval. So we're given this question and we're asked to find a 90% confidence interval that estimates the mean DRP score in this county schools of their third graders. Okay. So the first part here that I kind of like reiterated the question, I'm not going to hold you responsible for that. But I would like you to, you definitely have to list the conditions. You definitely have to tell me that in which way was the sample random. Here they took an SRS of 44 students. You definitely have to tell me the 10% condition. And here it would be safe to assume that 44 is less than 10% of all Henrico County's third grade students. Remember, this third condition here is different for means than it was for proportions. For means, it's called normal large sample. And the way in which it's satisfied in this case is that our sample size is big enough. It's 44, it's definitely more than 30. All right. The next thing we would do is actually find the confidence interval. And we would do so using menu 662. All right. It's going to ask you for data or stats. You have stats. You're going to enter those stats that you were given. Up here, we were given the sample mean, the sample standard deviation. Enter those. Make sure you put the right confidence, 90% in this problem, and you'll get the C lower and your C upper, okay? And then finally, just write the sentence that you should be accustomed to writing by now, that we are 90% confident the interval from captures the true mean score of Henrico County's third grade students on this particular test. All right, so I'll ask you to do at least one question like this, maybe two, and also some multiple choice questions. Now, these multiple choice questions will be kind of similar to the ones that I gave you as practice, and I'll go through each one of these now with you. All right. If you look on the left side of your screen, number one here, okay, we were asked to find a confidence interval, okay? Now, this was a little different than things that we've done. Some of you got it, was happy to see that you got it. Just want to make sure that you understand how to get it. So the interval is found by taking this number here, our point estimate, the statistic, and adding and subtracting what we call a margin of error. You find the margin of error for this particular problem by finding the critical value, which can be done on the calculator using inverse T. I gave you the directions, menu 556. Make sure you use the right degrees of freedom, which is the sample size minus 1. And also, depending on what confidence it asks, you would change. I think I put something, I put down here, put the tail area and put the right degrees of freedom. Your standard error is the standard deviation, which is given in the problem, all right? Divided by the square root of n, our sample size, okay? You know what? I think I actually had to find that number in the calculator because it wasn't given. 70 was not given here. So I found that number in the calculator. All right. This next question gives us a more like traditional way that I would expect you to know this, and it's just menu 662. All right. It's finding the confidence interval. You got your sample size, you got your X bar, the mean, and you got your standard deviation with 95% confidence. You'll find these two numbers given in the calculator. The next type of question you definitely want to make sure you understand is how to find the sample size that would be required to stay within a certain margin of error. Here's the formula. Guys, when you take the test or quiz or whatever you want to call it, I'll allow you to use your notes, use these materials here. You're just not allowed to work with anybody. So you'll have this in front of you, right? Remember, the Z critical value for 99% confidence is 2.58. The standard deviation is given, as is the margin of error. Don't forget to square it. That's something that students sometimes forget. Whatever you get as the outcome of your answer here, make sure you always round up. All right, you need, in this case, you would need 39. Number 4 is the same thing. you're given the same type of information. However, notice here, 90% confidence. Your Z critical value is different. It's 1.645. All right, but the same formula, and we're going to round our answer up. And I saw a lot of people get these two questions right, which I was happy to see on this practice assignment. Numbers 5 and 6. Number 5 and 6 speak to these conditions that we talked about earlier. So you want to make sure it's random, it's 10%, and it's normal large sample. Okay, I think you can kind of forget about the 10%. I think if a question's asked, it's either going to speak to, was it randomly selected, and then particularly this condition here because it's got multiple parts. So this problem here is not normal. We're told it's moderately skewed. Okay. However, the sample size that we're given, all right, it says you may use if your sample size is large, say it's at least 30. If that's the case, all right, then we can actually carry out our T procedures, or we can find our confidence interval. The issue with number 6, okay, is it tells us here that it is approximately normal. So we don't care that the sample size is less than 30. But the issue here is that these people volunteered to be a part of this study. They weren't randomly selected. So that element of randomness is missing here, which means the condition wouldn't be satisfied. And because that's not satisfied, you really can't carry out the procedure, or as they say here, it's not trustworthy. All right. So I would, again, in my studying, I would make sure I can definitely do what I showed here. Make sure I understand the sample size formulas. Make sure I understand the conditions. Okay. Understand how to do this. Menu 662, should I give it in a multiple choice question? All right. So again, guys, what I'm going to expect you to do today is watch this video. Okay. Again, you'll see an assignment in through Google Classroom, Edpuzzle. Just watch the video in its entirety and shoot me an email or comment in the class if you have any questions. Tomorrow, you'll see the assignment that'll say quiz for Chapter 8. All right. Thanks, guys. Hope all is well. Stay healthy.